Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to the BlueGamer Bluecast morning show. It's a video game talk show where every morning I talk about video games. Again, this is a script I'm supposed to have out. This is like the recurring theme of not having my script out, but I am a 30 plus year veteran in the video game industry when it comes to enjoying video games. So I have a lot to talk about, a lot of industry stuff to talk about. Good to see Autonomous and Midnight Hatter in the chat. Yeah, that music, I love that music. That's from the Batman and Adventures of Batman and Robin Sega CD, based on the animated series. But it's like a car action game, car combat game, but it's fun. And the music is really good because it's Sega CD. It has like actual recorded instruments. That's probably not the way to put it. They're not synthesizing using limited hardware. They're able to just have CD music. But it's interesting because it doesn't use music from Batman, though it takes little melodic tones and interjects them into the songs to make it seem like it's a Batman soundtrack. It's very interesting. It also it's also an animated episode that was never aired. So and not that it was supposed to be aired, but they just made an episode specifically for the show or the game. So yeah, okay, let me jump into the first. Okay, so remember yesterday I was showing off that DS, the custom DS I made, and it wasn't working. Obviously, as soon as we got off, the live show was working. So here is the same tablet, but this is with also the same controller, just made by a different company, and not made by a different company, I guess branded by a different company, you know, Red Magic cameras, high-end stuff. So they know that this is a high-end controller, so they grabbed it. Anyway, so this is it in the horizontal mode. When I then go into vertical mode for DS, I have the modified version here, so I just swap them out. What I realized was, since these are both the same controller, my the tablet would see them as the same controller, but there's, I guess, some maybe hardware identifier that made it different enough where then it would whack out. So I had to go in and manually assign the buttons, because a lot of times if you're troubleshooting the controllers for RetroArch, it will say, and this is strictly a RetroArch issue. This wasn't an issue with Android or any other Android apps. It was RetroArch, because RetroArch has a built-in thing for controllers, and what happens is it's usually made to where you can just plug in your controller and it works. And if you look that up online and you're like, hey, I'm having controller issues, they're like, yeah, make sure you don't mess with any of the hotkeys. Just keep it the way it is and it'll work. Well, that wasn't the case for me, because it was an instance where I'm using, multiple controllers that are the same. So I had to go in and remap it. All is good. I just wanted to throw out there that if you're like me, doing some researching on troubleshooting for controls, people tend to say, don't remap controls. It should work right off the bat. But there's some times where that's not the case, and you do have to remap the controls. So just FYI, RetroArch is cool, but it has some bugs. But I mean, I can't complain. It's an amazing little program. So from that, let me pull up something here. Did I lose? Oh no, it's right here in front of me. So interesting turn of events with Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. I was able to go through and beat it on the hard mode that unlocks after you beat it, and it retroactively went back in and gave me the achievements that were missing because I accidentally didn't have it on hardcore mode, which again, another little thing to think about if you really care. And again, it's not like I really do, but I love how I can then track what I've done. So actually, let's go to retro. So I was using Exophase, which combines all your gameplay activity. Retro achievements is just for the retro stuff. So let's see. Oh, no new game plus. Interesting. So there is another way to play the game where you don't do a new game plus, but you play on hard. Interesting. So that I don't know if I'll go back and do that. I'm just glad I was able to go back, play on hard, unlock the other achievements that I missed. Such a fun game, and it's only been this year that I've actually decided to like go back to Castlevania, beat it, and then go back and then beat it on hard or beat it on whatever other extra mode it's got. And I completely enjoy that aspect. It makes it where these games I can play forever. But it really does help because these are handheld games. Having a screen this big to play on. Playing on a big screen TV is cool and all, but I do enjoy it, especially, for instance, yesterday. Wife was chilling on the couch. I didn't want to sit in my office, so I went to sit with her on the couch and just, brought this little guy with me. Another thing I use too, what's cool about this controller is it has a built-in 3.5 millimeter jack and USB, so you can still charge and everything. But this tablet also has a headphone jack. And so I use these headphones that are really, really nice. They're $18. They wrap around the ear, they look good, and they sound really good. I can't believe they're 18. They might have been on sale. But, one last thing I'll add to is that on this tablet I bought, there's only one cover or case that seems to exist. It's this one. And it's nice because it gives enough thickness to where everything kind of holds fine on here, because I did have to do modifications to allow this to attach. I don't know. Yeah, like I had to break some plastic there so that it could fully open. Oh yeah, and then I did, what was interesting was, and let me go back to the exo phase. I did on this tablet load up the Xbox Cloud to just jump into some little kitty, big city. Didn't play too much, but I just wanted to test it. I would say for modern games, this display, it's IPS, but it's HD, but this works so good for classic games, but newer games that have really defined polygons and edges, you can kind of tell it's not the best display. So and it might be a future thing. I don't need to do that with modern games as much now, but the ultimate of this would be to buy a Chinese Lenovo tablet. It's only sold in China. It's like the Y700, and it's this size, just like super, super high end. It's about $300, which is not a lot, but I didn't want to spend that to create this. So, talking a little bit about that. Jim Kill X, good to see you. Awesome. Okay, so a lot of stuff I pulled up because news is still kind of slow because it's really based on announcements. And a lot of the announcements are things maybe we already know about, or it's more marketing style things. But let's jump into a few things here real quick. First, Black Ops 6 dev hopes Omnimovement system becomes a Call of Duty standard. So while I watched some of the Call of Duty presentation, I didn't really stick around for all of it. But that's on me because they announced something cool. So this year, they introduced, among other things, a new feature called Omnimovement, which allows players to sprint, jump, and dive in any direction. Treyarch production director Yale Miller said in an interview that he hopes this feature will become standard across Call of Duty games going forward. Okay, and hoping studios embrace a similar kind of feature. So, not that I know exactly what this Omnimovement is, I have an idea. So playing Helldivers 2, it does sort of that thing where you can, kind of move your body in any direction. And so some other games do that, but it was good to see that in a modern game like Helldivers 2. It really lended to moving around, shooting, being able to dodge. Well, talking with my buddy Steven and Midnight Hatter about that, and he was telling me how, because I guess the Helldivers 2 devs were talking about how they're inspired by Metal Gear Solid 5. So Steven was kind of explaining to me how that works, the movement, the controls. And it's awesome actually that Call of Duty is going in this direction, because for so long, playing Call of Duty, it's really, I don't want to say point and click, but it becomes that after some time because you're so used to just the basic move. But having options to move, I'd love to be able to dive out of the way, to the left, to the right, backwards, and shoot. I mean, I don't know if that's their plan, but that would be great. Because you can already do that forward. But to be able to do it in different directions, especially when it comes to sprinting or vaulting. So the idea is, and I think this is the right thing to do, and I'm glad this is happening, because this is a big studio. Normally things don't happen in that way. But Call of Duty has always been the one to kind of lead the charge with first-person shooters. I mean, I guess since, after Halo, it was Call of Duty. And it's been Call of Duty for a while. There hasn't been another first-person shooter to really be like, okay, here's a new way to play first-person shooters. But this is the direction to go into. I hope, and I love that they're saying they hope that this is a staple for other games, other studios. I love it. You know, just like the left trigger to aim became something, got tired of it. I think this is a little different. This is that extra options a player can have when playing. So this makes me more excited about Black Ops 6 than I was initially. So they unlocked Unreal Championship movement. Yeah, that see, that's another good example, like where games have done this before, and I guess I don't know how to explain it, but it's awesome that Call of Duty from ex-Activision, you know, now Microsoft, big studio, they don't have to look at those fine details. It's good that they have people within the studio that are like, how can we make changes to this game so it's not just the same thing? So that's great. That is great. But I wonder how it's going to feel compared to like Helldivers 2, because, you know, third person, you kind of can see then what you're doing. I don't know. Okay, let's see. It's nice to see them not just giving up and making more paid content. Exactly. And that's what I'm getting at. Normally we see that. I think most Call of Duties have been that. I think Advanced Warfare, it was, where they added, you know, where you could like double jump or wall run. I wish they still had that, to be honest, but now this is cool. And then, so this is pretty cool because another thing, Doom, they announced Doom Dark Ages. Again, I kind of briefly looked over it, looked pretty neat. I'm just hoping there's enough difference in gameplay to make it interesting. And what that is the sealed shot, or saw shield, which is a new item that's supposed to be a big deal. Now it's been modded in the original Doom already. So I like this because if it plays the way I think, because it reminds me of when I'm playing Call of Duty and I have like the chainsaw from Doom, and I think they have the chainsaw from Evil Dead 2, but also the beam saber recently, that you could just run around the map and you could just like it. Whereas Doom didn't have that necessarily. There's more of, yeah, you can go and like shoot and kill, but there's like animations involved. There's the, you know, those insta kill animations, those gore, there's a name for it. With this sealed shield saw, it might add another element of the gameplay with the movement where you're not taking your time to stop and have an animation with an enemy. It could be that depending on how you use it, depending on their health, you can bounce through enemies a little different. I'm just trying to think in my head, what are they going to do with the gameplay to make it a little more different and interesting? Just because Doom Eternal got so boring by the end. So we'll see. And then Yars Rising. So, you know, Yars classic game, but interesting that there's this new one, but it's a completely different type of game. It's actually a Metroidvania, but it's made by WayForward. And every time WayForward makes a Metroidvania, they happen to be good. Oh, there's a demo. I'll do it later. I don't want to mess up stream or something, but I'm gonna have to check this out because WayForward did Aliens Infestation, which was incredible. They did Mummy Returns, which I didn't beat, but I'm near the end. That is incredible. They're able to make a Metroidvania where moving the character around, it's almost like it's familiar, but not familiar in a Metroidvania sense. It's familiar like, oh, I'm just moving a character around, and then they just build it around Metroidvania. I don't know if that really made sense, but I said it. Let's see. Hey, Rogue New Type, good to see you. Okay, so next up, Rocket Knight Adventures Resparks. I don't know if any of you have ever played this. They had a Genesis version, a Super Nintendo version. There was even a third game that came out beginning of 2010s, I think, and I played through and beat it, I think. But I guess they're re-releasing it, so that's pretty cool. Again, this is a Konami joint, and it is interesting. Like, Konami is still out there. That's why I actually am excited about what their Castlevania announcement will be. You know, with Silent Hill, we've got Rocket Knight Adventures, Metal Gear Solid stuff. Konami still does it, and I think they do it good, where they're not shoving a bunch of crap in our faces, but they're also not overinflating. I guess budget. I don't know if that's the case, but they never talk about. In fact, they talk about hiring more. Like, Konami is just a company that, and they saw it early on of like, okay, we have to shift how video games are developed, and I guess that made a lot of people mad. But but to be honest, Konami's done a good job. They might not be coming out with big AAA brand new titles, but they're taking IP they know that works and doing just enough with them. Anyway, interesting. Is that? Oh, okay, but I can click on it. So no Xbox, huh? That same thing happened. Almost, actually. No, not the same thing. That Castlevania Requiem was only PlayStation. This must be temporary. There's no way they would hold back like that. But we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Rogue New Type saying, yes, Rocket Knight was one of my childhood favorites. That's cool. Yeah, that's one I played a lot. Steven, do you like this perspective camera 2.5D side scroller or orthographic? You know what? I think it depends on how the polygons or the art style is designed. I don't mind the 2.5D. It's just sometimes when games are made in 3D and then there's a lot of polygons you got to put places, sometimes the geometry of the background or elements in the world don't match the geometry of like the character and the enemy, and I have this disassociation a lot of times. And this started very early on. I remember Shadow Complex when that first came out, and that was like a Metroidvania that was like full 3D graphics, and I was put off by the look because it really looked like I was looking at just basic geometry shapes that weren't fully, I don't know. It just, when making a game, and I know Steven knows this more than anyone, it's like there's concessions you have to make sometimes, but sometimes it's hard to do that visually. You just have to be consistent. Even if you have to scale back something visually to get the game done, I think then you have to do that across the board. Make it consistent. I don't know. Autonomous, that's fair. Shadow Complex is fun, but the visuals aren't like especially memorable. Yeah. So I'm glad you know what I mean. And I think that's the best way to put it. It's like that time making a game 3D, there's only so much you can do. Jim Killex, I remember when Konami was dubbed worst company to work for in Japan for 2 years straight. Yeah, it's very interesting how Konami is because they also treat their developers. It's almost like this is just developed by Konami. They don't really highlight individual developers. That really only happened when the Metroidvanias became very popular for Konami with Igarashi. I think that's, yeah, Iga code. Oh my God, I don't know. Anyway, and then he left eventually because then they transitioned the Castlevanias to. That's interesting. He got Castlevania so popular that Konami doubled down on that and then got a Western developer to make a full 3D game, and then people were like, "What's Castlevania anymore?" Interesting, actually. But yeah, they do this thing where they don't highlight. Or sometimes you won't know who actually produced music in. It wasn't until Castlevania that they would use the name of Miriam Michirachi. I'm so bad with Japanese names, but the composer, and I follow her on YouTube, just the name doesn't stick with me because she plays piano of her Castlevania songs. Anyway, it's like at first they never used her name, and then eventually they did when her music became popular. Kind of interesting little aside about Konami. Okay, let's jump into the headlines. Activision QA contractors say they were laid off for unionization efforts. So this is something that isn't mentioned a lot that I have seen in passing is when these layoffs are happening, there is this active thing going on with some video game companies, not all. Activision and Microsoft is one where there's unionization in place. But when the union comes in, they are looking at how the employment is currently taking place. And a union can't work with super over staffed. I mean, there's only so much they could do as well. And so I think a lot of, and maybe this is a good thing, what's going on is these companies are kind of level setting between the unions and the publishers of like, okay, what do we really need to do going forward? So we're not overinflating these budgets and getting large staff and all that. So, yeah, it's the U.S. Labor Union Communications Workers of America. That's interesting. That is interesting. So, yeah, we'll see what goes along with that. because yeah, the unions, and it's not every video game publisher that actually has a union behind it, kind of watching what's going on. So, yeah, interesting stuff. Okay, this is where we're going to get to where maybe there's not that much interesting news, but we'll see. So Valorant's console trophy list has leaked online, which I know. I'm curious how big Valorant will be on consoles, because I think for the longest time people got PCs. And when I say people, it skews young, Valorant. So we'll see. Oh, guys talking about X7 and 8. Yeah, I didn't really get to those later ones. Let's see. Astrocade AI. Interesting. It goes towards its generative AI social gaming platform. Huh. Yeah, don't know what to say about that yet. Voodoo. Don't know any of that. Okay, yeah, mock reviews. That's pretty neat. And game evaluation. That's kind of important to do in a way. Epic DB launches and starts leaking games and unreleased content. Oh, just like Steam DB, but for Epic. I wonder if anything. Mega leak time. Did anything get leaked? It seems to be giving away more than intended. For instance, has revealed references to The Last of Us Part 2 on PC, a Turok title from Saber Interactive, DLC for the unreleased Sonic X Shadow Generation, a bunch of lines referring to the Final Fantasy remake. For instance, nestled within the latter item are data points referring to a deluxe upgrade. Interesting. So, and there's even a nod to Bloodborne remake. Huh. And they're saying it could be a fake listing, but it makes sense that a Bloodborne remake would come out. I don't think they would call it remake. Probably remaster. I don't know. It depends, because that frame pacing on PlayStation was pretty crazy. And that was a while ago. That was PS4. Yeah. Let's see what cool stuff comes out of that. Excuse me. That's my tea. Okay. Yeah, green tea. Just trying to figure out what to do in the morning to make, it easy to talk for a while. Yeah, green tea. Okay. Oh yeah, Crow Country. I saw a little bit of this. It looks neat. I love these old school looking games. It looks really neat. It looks like something you'd play on, like, I don't know, PlayStation. Pretty neat. It almost looks like it has pre-rendered backgrounds, but I don't think that's the case. Okay. So Assassin's Creed Shadows, Japan, is roughly similar in size to Egypt in Origins. Okay. So Origins was the last Assassin's Creed that I completed. I didn't 100% it. I really liked it in what it did. That, some open world games do this, is I had a lot of empty open space, especially like in the desert. And that's neat in some ways, because then it kind of seems realistic. There's like this vastness, but at the same time, it's like, do you go explore all that? And, there was some neat stuff to explore in that one. So I just like that there's two different characters, because it reminds me of playing Castlevania Portrait of Ruin on the DS, where they introduced two characters. And then I went back to Area of Sorrow to beat it again, and I was like, you know what? I like the two characters. So when I get to Portrait of Ruin, it's just because of Portrait of Ruin, you have these two characters that you can switch between them as you play, or be both of them at the same time. The other one just attacks, after you attack. And you can give, because you could switch at any time. So either one, you're giving equipment, armor, stuff like that. I kind of like that idea. Star Wars Outlaws can be finished in 30 hours, says creative director. Okay. Oh, also reveals a significant feature that was cut early in development. It's interesting. Some people got a limited behind the scenes look at this game, and I guess some people were complaining that it felt old. So that's interesting. I don't know what they mean by that. We'll see. Very, very early on, we decided that we decided this is going to be a 25 to 30 hours golden path adventure, 50, 60 hours for completionists. And that is, for a guy with a family and job, it's still a fair amount of time. Yeah, it is, but I think that's perfectly reasonable for an open world Star Wars game. I mean, Noah and I put in over 100 in Elden Ring, hundreds in GBO2. I think I can do this. But it's not Assassin's Creed epic 200 hours worth of gameplay, so that allows us to really focus on the detail. It allows us to focus, maybe with a smaller team, on executing something that is manageable. Yeah, and it reminds me, because they did the Avatar game, which looks and plays great. Maybe I'm just not interested in the world, so I didn't bother continuing to play it. I really think this is going to be a good game. Yeah. Okay, add. All right, let's see what else is going on. How many planets in Star Wars Outlaws answered? Oh, I am tired of these. They could just say 4 right in the title, and then expand on it. Okay, there is features 5 planets. Okay, so I like that. So this is, while it's open world, I think it's going to be more of the open zone format. Something similar to like Sniper Elite 5, where it's just, instead of a bunch of little missions, it's just a few big missions. And I like that, because it's like I can take my time fully exploring Tatooine. Okay, so that's interesting. I used to, no, I feel like I still know Star Wars a whole lot, but I can only recognize Tatooine. So it could be these planets are brand new for the game. But, yeah, I can't wait to play this, actually. Can't wait to play it. Oh, yeah, responding to some negative previews, Star Wars Outlaws director says demo was just an appetizer. Yeah, which, that's the thing always. Like, especially closed door, look at something. They're going to have the scope limited to what you can access. Let's see. Steam Next Fest, June 2024. That started a couple days ago. That's why there's so many demos for stuff coming out. I tell you, there's so many games to play. There's so many. It's crazy. Nintendo Switch is the best-selling console of all time in Japan. Wow, congratulations. You didn't think they'd beat the NES, or then the Wii, or the DS, and now they have. That's excellent. I think that's great. It's saying what people want in gaming right now in this generation, if people are buying the handheld, Okay, so this Dragon Age, the Veilguard actually looked pretty neat. I've never played a Dragon Age game, and I know because some of them were like super RPG, but also some of them could be action adventure, which this looked like it. I don't know. I could play it. I don't know. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 will receive 8 new suits and more in the next update. I just can't believe I haven't finished this game. To be fair, that first Spider-Man game, I didn't even finish it. After it took a few years. I don't know what it is. It's like these are these big budget games that actually have a fun gameplay loop, but there's something about the interjection of narrative and cutscenes, and then where there's a lot to do in the game, maybe changes and takes you to another. It's just so disjointed a lot with all those elements that I want something where I am immersed in a gameplay experience. Spider-Man 2 is more of a narrative experience, even though it has good gameplay. But because you'll sit down and play, you might be stuck in cutscenes for a while, or walking with people for a while, or cutting to another gameplay element for a while. It's almost like it's leading you on this journey, and you don't really control it until you're in combat, punching. So, I'd like to beat it though. Let's see. I think that's about it. So, let's see. Let's look at some of these cool stuff. Yeah, Turok. Yeah, I wonder if it's a new Turok, because they've re-released all of them but Evolution, actually. Right? No, there was the 3 on N64 and then Evolution. I think that's right. Let's see. Every game should have alternate routes when you have alternate characters. Yes, I see what you're saying, and I think that's what they're doing in the Assassin's Creed, where it's if you want to be stealthy, you pick the ninja. If you want to go all sword fight crazy, you pick the samurai. And that reminds me, because in Portrait of Ruin, there's not multiple paths, but there's some enemies that require magic to fight them, and some enemies that are immune to magic. And in the game, Portrait of Ruin, one character is a magic character, the other one is just the whip boy. So, so that's a good thing to think of when it comes to the gameplay. And you have two characters to make it where you really need one for one or one for the other. And in Portrait of Ruin, it does a thing where you can have a character sit on one button so you can go to the other, or you can use two characters at once to push heavy objects. So, yeah. I was just going to say, I wonder how different the two routes would be beyond controls. Yeah, games definitely need to start doing alternate routes for characters again. And, man, that's just reminding me of the Siphon Filter Omega Strain, even though that was more multiplayer. That had so many different ways to achieve even a single objective. But doing that in multiplayer is awesome. New type, agreed, the Avatar world doesn't intrigue me at all. Yeah, it's very strange because I love James Cameron. I love like his designs, and there's even mechs. But there's something about it. It's like, yeah, I think it's too on the nose with like, here's this group that then a military force is just going to destroy. And it's like, I feel like there's no room for fun in that universe. You know, it's all pretty dark. But we got to get them clickbait titles, Adam, I know. For me, it was the time you weren't playing Spider-Man that dragged it down. Yeah, that's exactly it. I wish they maybe did it where there's an optional story mode where you could play like could be arcade and story mode. Arcade is just you play the game with all the missions. Story mode's then like, okay, now you're Mary Jane for like 2 hours. Now you're walking with your mom in the school gym, and stuff like that. And yeah, like even in this new one, they had it where there'd be flashbacks within your young Peter with your friend running around. And it's like, why am I doing this? I wanted to play Spider-Man 2. Yeah. Objective, help Aunt May cross the road. Yeah, that's exactly it. Well, anyway, that just about does it, guys. Thanks all for joining the Blue Gamer Bluecast morning show. I will be back again tomorrow. And we'll see what else there is to get into. So until next time, have a good one. See y'all.